Hi guys, welcome back for another episode of Keep Ups with Canadian Women's Soccer. So we had a bit of a busy week there, watching the Canada versus Wales game on Friday and then the Canada versus England game on Tuesday, which is today, but we'll see when I post this. So Canada had some big performances, winning 3-0 against Wales on Friday, and then perhaps even a bigger performance today against England, winning 2-0. And Wales is no team to sneeze at. Even though they're ranked 31st, they actually had a big game today tying Denmark, who's ranked 14th in the world. So it goes to show that they can raise their level against the best teams. And Canada was able to pull off a 3-0 win, which is great in the terms that they had a big win, and also in the terms that they actually were able to score goals, which is something they've been lacking lately. And they followed that up with 2 goals against England. Neither was necessarily a very pretty goal, but it kind of represented how Canada is with the grit and never giving up. So, as I mentioned, Wales is a very good competition, and it showed that we were able to kind of take it to the opponents who maybe aren't ranked as highly. And then when it came to England, that was actually our first win in over 2 years against a team ranked in the top 10. We don't want to get too cocky just because England was actually missing a couple of their key players in the back line, with Steph Houghton out with Achilles injury. And she is their captain. She basically runs their identity, and I think England looked a little lost without her out there. And as well, you had a couple players fighting off injuries, such as Demi Stokes coming off half an hour in, and we kind of picked on her to have our first goal. And that's no disrespect to Evelyn Viens, because that chip was masterclass. But with Demi Stokes, and then again, Lucy Bronze only came on the last little bit. She's also been fighting injuries. And so kind of like how Canada fought all those injuries and SheBelieves, England was kind of fighting them now. But still, it was a lot of positives to take away from the games for sure. As mentioned, number one was even without our top goal scorer, we were able to find the back of the net. And so goals aplenty was something that they had been aiming for from SheBelieves Cup, and they definitely improved it. It was nice to see Becky taking more of a playmaker role versus the goal scoring role, because as we saw, that didn't turn out too great in SheBelieves. But instead, she sent in some passes, some crosses that were right on the money, and that was how Evelyn Viens got her first ever goal for Canada. And she is someone who I'm also very excited about, because we don't really have many natural goal scorers, and she seems to be someone who's okay with getting those dirty goals and just getting in there, and always seems to be in the right place. And now that she's gotten a couple games under her belt, she definitely looks more confident out there than she did in the first couple games. So no pressure on her, because you don't want to be like, oh, she's the next Sinclair, as we did with like Heidema, and you can see a bit of confidence there dropping. So we want to kind of take our time with her and see that, I mean, she's a young player that came from outside the Canadian pool, and that success story in itself is great. But I'm very interested to see how she may thrive on the international stage. And hopefully she gets a chance maybe to crack the 18 roster for the Olympics. Another interesting thing for me that I kind of stood out as I watched the games, and I don't know if you guys noticed as well, is the broadcasting rights. The social media team, they did a great job. On Instagram, Twitter, everything, I was able to follow along and kind of check at halftime, see how they were doing, and their posts were great. Like that video of Jessie scoring the beautiful goal against Wales was sick, and I obviously shared it to my Instagram. But the actual broadcasting is a bit more fuzzy. I'm not entirely sure what went on there with One Soccer. It was great that they showed the game for free on Friday against Wales on YouTube, but the quality wasn't very good. It was kind of hard to see, which is kind of what happened on a couple of the men's games as well. And so that's disappointing, but the quality was much better for the game against England. But both times, the broadcasters were speaking for the other team. And if you want to generate interest, you want to generate this sense of pride in your national team, you have to have pre, post, and during game commentary that excites the people who are listening. You want to provide information about the players. And though the English commentators tried to do their best with their knowledge about the players in the Canadian team who played in the WSL, such as Jessie Flemming and Janine Becky, it definitely left some players out there that probably should have been getting more mentions but weren't, just because the commentators weren't very aware of them, and instead they focused on like the English or the Wales team. So if we can get commentators, I don't know what the restriction was with that, but if we can get commentators and pre and post game shows, then people can generate that interest more, and you guys maybe won't need me anymore. So maybe in a second thought, we don't need good broadcasting. You guys can just come back to me. So But it's definitely something that would improve the game and improve the kids and the adults who are watching it, right? Another interesting thing for me was some specific players who stood out, as I mentioned in the forwards. But the midfield, there was a bit of a mystery there. We're like, okay, Desiree Scott, she's our holding mid. Jessie Flemming, definitely one of our attacking mids. And then we're like, okay, we need someone who can slot in there as part of the attacking and the defensive link. And so tried a couple players out there, and Quinn definitely stood out in their playing ability. There were a couple traits that I thought were quite impressive. Their strength on the ball, for sure. What I thought was interesting is their ability to play under pressure. There were a couple really tight turns and playmaking abilities and seeing where the ball should go that maybe some other midfielders wouldn't see. So I thought that was definitely interesting. And their passes were quite accurate, I would say. And there were a couple of giveaways once the fatigue set in towards the end of the game. But out of all the midfielders in that rotation, they seemed to be the most comfortable in that, which was good to see. The last thing I would say, too, is Bev Priestman. Thank God she's our coach. There's been such a dramatic change in the energy, the vibe, the culture. I don't know if it's having a female coach who understands you need to have those good vibes, which John Herdman was pretty good at too, or the confidence in the players, the passing, the ability to break down other players was much better. The game wasn't perfect. England had the ball in their half a lot, but that's going to happen when you play the best teams in the world. You're going to learn how to deal with it. And with Bev Priestman, she was able to analyze what subs to make too, and she had the versatility of a lot of players in her repertoire, and she used that to her full advantage, slotting Jade Riviere in for Ashley Lawrence, so Ashley Lawrence could slot into the midfield or on the wing. Quinn would slot into holding mid to get a couple minutes so Desiree Scott could rest, because in the Olympics, there's going to be a lot of games in a short period of time. You need to have this versatility so your team will survive and thrive. So I was very happy to see what Bev did with her subs and what she kind of saw on the field. And though, as I mentioned, like, it wasn't perfect games and the goals were ugly, I mean, they put the pressure on, they executed as well as they could, and we'll see which players make that 18-person roster. And as well, the draw for the Olympic schedule is going to be held April 21st, so keep an eye out for that. I'll probably do a video on that, kind of analyze the opponents that we'll have. Very excited to see what'll be up for that. So stay tuned. Make sure you keep an eye out for that video, as well as the video about broadcasting and media rights. Definitely going to cover all of that as soon as possible. Looking forward to hearing your guys' thoughts. If you want to like, subscribe, talk to you guys soon.